Okay, it's Bein HaMikdash. And the Rebbe hat gemacht a Sturm about learning in Yonam of the Beis HaMikdash during the 3 weeks. And of course he brings the Midrash, where the Rebbe explains the Midrash, that the Midrash suggests that learning in Yonam of the Beis HaMikdash, right, the story based on the Psukim in Tanakh, that Yechezkel says to the Rebbe, why are you telling this to me? It's irrelevant. And he tells him, no, write it, let the Yidden learn it, and they'll build it. So the way the Midrash explains the Pasuk and the way the Rebbe explains the Midrash, we learn from this that learning about the Beis HaMikdash is not only like Kala Oisek B'Torah K'ilu, but it's mamish building the Beis HaMikdash. So the Rebbe wanted we should learn in Yonam the Beis HaMikdash, in Masechta Midas, Hilchas Beis HaBchira, and also in Sefer Yechezkel. We are going to do 2 classes, not about the Beis HaMikdash, but really about life in the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash as it relates to people. Beis HaMikdash was a lebedike Platz. People came there, they participated. There was a very, very complicated, very, very involved structure and order. Kohanim b'Avodasam, Levim b'Duchanam, Yisrael b'Ma'amadam. Perhaps we'll get to that next week. And we have 2 topics. The first topic reads, before you come. The second topic reads, while you are there. Next week in Mitzvah Hashem, with Hashem's help, of course, we will discuss while you are there. Today, the topic is before you come. And there are 4 questions. What can I wear? Do I have to go to the mikveh first? Who may visit? And when can I visit? Years ago, it's maybe 15 years ago, 14 years ago, 13 years ago, I was asked by Neshei Chabad to speak by the spring convention on Shabbos afternoon. And they wanted the same topic. I couldn't find my notes from then. Okay. So I got up, I started to explain, I meise mit Chul na Parsa Kedesh, and Tevel, and Bikurim, and Truma, Meise Rishon, Meise Sheni, Meise Oni, and Peah, and Leket, and Shikha, and Eileles, and Peret, and Chala, and mikvahs. Dort darf man live in the mikvah, and dort darf man live in the mikvah. So the MC got up in the middle of my talk, and she said, "Lady, don't worry, you'll have a lot of servants." Ladies, don't worry. In other words, you're finding out Mashiach at Kumen. The Yiddishkeit that we have today is so uncomplicated relative to the Yiddishkeit in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. It's incredible. In other words, we always say that Judaism is a lifestyle. You know, Judaism is not a series of rituals. It's not the pshat, the zazach. Yiddishkeit consumes your whole life. So to use an old cliche, you ain't seen nothing yet. If we think, there's copies here, if we think that Yiddishkeit consumes us now, we have no concept of how Yiddishkeit is in Eretz Yisrael in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, especially when Kol Yeshvei Aleha, Yiddishkeit is completely consuming. And that, so to speak, is the foundation, that's the essence, that's the background of this discussion. You have to put yourself in that space. When you talk about Mashiach's coming and going to the Beis HaMikdash and avoiding the Beis HaMikdash, and of course tonight we're not talking about what happens once you get there. We're talking about the process of getting there. The thing you have to indicate or mention first is that it is very, very involved, very, very consuming. The whole person's life revolves around maintaining a certain condition, a certain maimed and matzev, so that you should be in a good place, ultimately, so that when you go to the Beis HaMikdash, you're going to be prepared. And Beklau, life in the times of the Beis HaMikdash is a whole different type of an existence. Let me give it to you in other words. I'll give it to you in other words. There are Maimari Hasidus that discuss the issue of a Balmum versus a Tamim. Everybody knows that in Halacha, in Teda, it's in Chumash, And in Yiddishkeit, there's a whole person and there's a blemished person. There's a whole animal, there's a blemished animal. A whole person can't be a kohen. A blemished person can't be a kohen. A blemished person is not allowed to duchen. Perhaps even he can't take certain positions of leadership. An animal with a mum is not qualified for a carbon, and so forth. And of course, we live in the age of absolute, bleeding hearts. Everybody is so liberal that they have absolutely no seichel left whatsoever. And the shaila frektach, the question is asked, what did the Baal Mum do wrong? A person was born a miniature, a person is born a midget, a person is born with some other deficiency, a small eye. What is this? What's the getan? What disqualifies him as a kohen? An animal that has a scratch, bedukin sheba'ayin, or the ear, what did the animal do? Why should that animal not have the schus to be a carbon? What's the crime? So there's a maim from Tzemach Tzedek and Derech Mitzvah, where he talks about the Issa be'imakar b'alei mumen, and he says it in these words. And I'm paraphrasing, I'm using my own words. There is normal Yiddishkeit and there is extreme Yiddishkeit. Notice that I didn't say crazy. There's normal Yiddishkeit and there's extreme Yiddishkeit. Normal Yiddishkeit is defined by balance. Everything has a place, nothing dominates. Extreme Yiddishkeit is polar Yiddishkeit. Polar means we can't do everything well, so one thing we do incredibly well. In avoidedika terms and Hasidische terms, it's the difference between what we call the tzaddik or the beinani and the Baal Tshuva. Tzaddikim and beinanim by definition are not extreme. Everything has a time. Davening has a time. Learning has a time. Mitzvahs have a time. A Baal Tshuva, who's a compensator, he's making up for a deficiency, he's making up for a loss, has to be medalik shur, has to take extremes. These are two models of Yiddishkeit that the Eibishter created, both legitimate, but distinctive. They're different. The Eibishter created this for one reality and this for another reality. Beklalos, basically, the difference between normal Yiddishkeit and extreme Yiddishkeit is the difference between Zman HaBayis and Zman HaGolus. Zman HaBayis is the time that's defined by normalcy. It's not defined by extreme. Zman HaGolus is a time that's defined by extremes. In other words, when you learn in Marich Hasidus that Yechidah Sheba Nefesh and Mesidas Nefesh and the highest Madregas of Tshuva only emerge in Zman HaGolus, that's true. And the Yid in the time in the Beis HaMikdash says it's not fair. Why should I not have the possibility to be Magala my Yechidah Sheba Nefesh? And the answer is you have a different Inyan. Your Inyan is, in quotes, to be balanced and to be normal. So when Torah says certain functions have to be done by a tamim, a whole human being, the Torah is saying this is the model of Judaism that's normal. It's not saying there's something wrong with the Baal Mum. It's saying the Baal Mum by definition is a compensator. Physically, that's the way it is. People who are blind can hear better than most. People who have other deficiencies, they compensate with other chushim, kidu mafursim. It is, in a psychological way, in a spiritual way, in a real way, idea of compensating. There is a place for the Baal Mum, there's a place for the overcompensator, for the extreme person, what we'll call, for the purposes of clarity, the Baal Tshuva, and there's a place for normalcy. The Beis HaMikdash bifrat and Zman HaBayis b'chlal are defined by normalcy. Everything is balanced. Zman HaGolus is defined by extremes, by Tshuva, by Mesidas Nefesh, by Yechidah, which is a big mailah. So when you disqualify a Baal Mum from going into the Beis HaMikdash, you're not saying there's something wrong with you. You're saying you have a different avodah. There are many, many examples for this. One of the examples that's brought my Moreh Hasidus for this is Yom Kippur and Purim. You have it in a lot of my Morim. I think the Rebbe also spoke about it in my Morim. Yom Kippur and Purim. From my Rebbe nicht gesagt, na Sukkot they can make gerade. And Tafish Ayin Tes. We explain the difference between Yom Kippur and Purim. It's connected to Esther. Yom Kippur and Purim are both Yechidah. They're both the essence. But Yom Kippur is the revelation of the essence in the normal world of the Beis HaMikdash. 1K in Gadol, 1K the Shakadoshim, 1 day of the year. Purim is also as extreme as Yom Kippur, but it's ad layada, it's chaos. It's everybody, it's in the street. Because this is the normal model of that avodah, this is the extreme model of that avodah. So when you disqualify Balmum from doing the avodah in the Beis HaMikdash, there's nothing wrong with him. You're saying this is not his world, it's not his place. So when we talk about Mashiach's coming, taken from a Yad Mamish, and the building of the Beis HaMikdash, and planning to go to the Beis HaMikdash and all the rest, you cannot view this as a trip. You cannot view this, okay, let's get into the car, let's travel to Jerusalem. Because it's not that. You have to view it in the context of daily life. You don't visit the Beis HaMikdash once a year. Your whole life revolves around the fact that 3 times a year you're going to visit the Beis HaMikdash. The world of a Yid in the time of the Beis HaMikdash is a normal world. And I'm going to be discussing Mitzvah soon what normalcy means, at least the way we intend it. And therefore, if you're not planning to visit the Beis HaMikdash in 6 months, or in 5 months, or in 4 months, whatever the case is, your identity as a normal person is a life that reflects a context, a framework in which, even though I'm not going to visit the Beis HaMikdash anytime soon, my life is in concert, my life stimmt, my life is in accordance with the fact that I live in Eretz Yisrael, where there is a Yerushalayim, and there is a Beis HaMikdash, there is a Kedesh HaKadoshim, because they're a part of my normalcy. In other words, what about the Taina? Yeah, we have enough mitzvahs. Mashiach's going to come, and we're going to have, Ramach mitzvah say, we have a fraction of that number today. I think I saw in a Sefer Pevov. It's also a lot. We have a fraction of mitzvahs, especially mitzvahs. We're going to have to do so many more mitzvahs. And we have to be worrying about so many more things. It's like, it's hard enough to be from now. So when I spoke to the women, this lady gets up and says, don't worry, you'll have lots of servants. What's the answer? What is the answer to this taina? Mashiach is going to come, we're going to be overloaded with mitzvahs. How are we going to manage? And the answer in one word is, we will also be normal. And normal people, in the truest sense of the word, in the mystical sense of the word, will not be overwhelmed. Our lives are polar lives. We have incredibly good moments, and then we plots. Highs and lows, up and down, seesaw. You just hope nobody sees that you're seeing and sawing, yeah? But in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, things are going to be balanced. A balanced person, in a balanced Eretz Yisrael, near a balanced Yerushalayim, and a balanced Beis HaMikdash, this is not overwhelming too. In other words, Hayois, that life is going to have this semblance of balance and normalcy and order. There is going to be a spiritual presence. There's going to be a Ruach HaKodesh that's going to pervade our lives. That's also going to be a part of our normalcy, which is going to make it realistic for us to live the lives we're going to live when Mashiach comes. It says in Sfarim that in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, specifically the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, there was a Ruach HaKodesh. Everybody didn't just learn Torah and do mitzvahs, everybody felt Ruchnius. The elite of that we call Nevi'im. But Bechlal Yidden, Stam Yidden, they learned Mikra, they opened up a Sefer Torah. And they learned Torah Shebeksav. They didn't only understand the Svara, mit Adiyuk, some Gezen Getlichkeit. It was part of their lives. And it wasn't because they were extreme and Mesa Nefesh. It was because they were normal. And they were balanced. If I had an extra hour, I would delve into what is called in Chassidus, Hiskalalus. Hiskalalus has 2 connotations. A, everything has its place. In a healthy system, everything has its own place. You have 248 limbs, each limb has its own space, and nobody's allowed to trespass. B, they're sewn together, they're woven together, they're fused together into a harmony, into an order which is so precise and so exact that it's miksha achas. It's one mitzias. This is normal. Everything has a place. You have time for everything. You don't have to do something for 50 hours and everything else you have to make up for. Everything has a time, everything has a place, everything has an order, and everything is all integrated and unified. And the result of this order is that it creates an environment for an inspiration from the Eibishter. But I want to introduce us to two Hebrew words. And I want to make this the basis for the difference between tonight's class and next week's class. We're establishing a foundation. The foundation is Mashiach is going to come, we're going to have many, many more mitzvahs. But you cannot look at them as many more mitzvahs and be frightened away. You have to look at it as a totally different human being, living a normal life, a healthy life, a balanced life. A balanced life, not just because we eat good food according to the United States Department of Agriculture. Balanced in Yiddishkeit. Balanced in mitzvahs, balanced in Torah, balanced in Gemilas Chasadim, balanced in Parnasa, balanced in Ruchnias and Gashmias, and on and on and on and on and on. And that all of that balance will allow for, provide for an inspiration, a sense of Ruchnias, of Ruach HaKodesh. So I want to introduce you to two words. And they are Tahara and Kedusha. And if I had to put a label on the difference between tonight's discussion and next week's discussions, that's what it would be. We're going to be describing how the world is going to be in Eretz Yisrael after Mashiach comes, minus the Beis HaMikdash, getting to the Beis HaMikdash. In other words, what are our lives going to be like? Everything except for actually being inside the Beis HaMikdash. And the answer is our lives are going to be pure. The purity is going to be both an act on our part and a symptom of the balance, the normalcy of our existence. And this is the only way you can possibly explain how you can survive with so many mitzvahs. How can any human being do as many mitzvahs they're going to have then? Now we have a fraction of those mitzvahs and it overwhelms us. And the answer is we're not all going to be meshugah and need Ritalin and psychiatrists. We'll be normal on every level. Normal on Gashmizdika levels, normal on Ruchnizdika levels, and so forth and so on. So tonight we're going to talk about life in Eretz Yisrael in a framework where things are pure. And where things are pure, everything has a time and a space. But the next week we're going to talk about life in the Beis HaMikdash where things are holy, which is a different dimension altogether. And of course the number one rule for what I am trying to describe is seder, order. Everything has a place. To give you an example, in life as we know it, we know about a person who can be on the lowest level one day and be at the highest level the next day. And unfortunately, Rahman Tzad, a person can be on the highest level one day, the lowest level the next day. We know all of these extreme kind of conditions. This is our lives. This is how we live. In the times of the Beis HaMikdash, those kind of things are not going to happen. Everything's going to be orderly. People are going to be orderly. Levels of people are going to be orderly. And our world is going to be orderly. Just think about this. Eretz Yisrael is going to be divided into 13 sections, and you're going to live with your family. You're going to live with your family, right? That's very antithetical to shlichus. It's not lech lecha me'artzecha or me'laretcha beis avicha. Living with your family, living with the people closest to you. Now you may not like that idea, but that's actually normal. Everybody lives in their own place. Yichus is a symptom of normalcy. Knowing who you come from and who your relatives are, and that kind of cohesion and that kind of continuity is normal. And everything has a place. And everything has a level. Everything is important. And everything is contained. Everything is limited. So I want you to open up your pamphlets and read Rashi. This is a Rashi in Pashas Kerach, which a lot of Sforim focus on. I don't know where the Chazal is, so I didn't quote the Chazal. I couldn't find it. I quoted Rashi. Everybody knows the story of Kerach. Kerach made an uprising. And of course, Kerach's uprising is, who cares? Kerach's a man, he can do whatever he wants. The force of Kerach's uprising was, of course, that he mobilized people, got people to join him. Reish Nun Rosh Sanadrois. You got all the intellectuals, all the guys Chachamim, all the guys Rabbanim joined Kairach's rebellion. And of course, Moshe Rabbeinu is at a loss. Kidum Mefursam. So Moshe Rabbeinu does what is called in the modern world divide and conquer. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu is afraid that the whole Jewish nation is going to go down the tubes because of Kairach, so he isolates Kairach. He cuts him out. And one of the discussions that Moshe Rabbeinu has with Kairach, he says, wait till tomorrow morning, and the Eibush will announce who is his. He tells Kairach, tomorrow morning, the Eibush will announce who was his. So there's a very, very interesting Rashi, and I think a very important Rashi, and I underlined it. Moshe Rabbeinu says to Kairach, the Eibush that created a world of divisions. The Eibush that created a world of barriers. Some are physical barriers, some are actual barriers, and some are metaphysical barriers. Ruchni is the barriers. You cannot break those walls. He says, could you make the night into the day, a day into the night? So too is impossible for you to undermine, to abolish the walls that separate a Kohen from a Levi and a Levi from a Yisrael. Shenem, as the pasuk says, Vahi Erev, Vahi Veiker, Vayavdil, and then it says Vayavdil Aron Lagdishe V'Goymer. What is Rashi saying? Rashi says to Kairach, Herzachain Kairach. You're telling me to make a Levi into a Kohen is no big deal. You just register, you pay $50, and you upgrade. He says that Eibush created Havdalas. You know very, very well you cannot make the day into the night or the night into the day. Or you can't make the land into the sea or the sea into the land. You can't do it. Those are absolute mechitz, havdalas that the Rebbe created. The havdalah between a Kohen and a Levi is equal. And you cannot defy it. Think about the discussion. Kairach is saying, why does everything have to be so normal and so balanced and everything has a place? Let's mix it up. Let's make a chant. On the level of Yechida, we're all the same. About Gadol, Mamzet Am Chacham, Kain Gadol Am Haaretz. If a person does tshuva, he's higher than Veistach Ikadehim Mipninim, Mishnichas Lefnai Velefnim, and so on and so forth. How terrible is it going to be if a Levi becomes a Kohen? I'll be a Baal Tshuva, I'll be extreme. And the answer is, extreme is one model. But there's also a model. The Rebbe created the fancy Hebrew word is Elam HaTikkun, order. And in Tikkun, you cannot change things. The Rebbe created a Kohen, the Rebbe created a Levi. You cannot defy the Hagbalas, the order that the Rebbe created. And on the next page, I brought you from the Gemara, Masechta Pesachim, the 7 Havdalas. Right? Hamavdil ben Kedesh Lachel, ben Eilach Heshech, ben Yisrael La'amim, ben Yem Shus Me'amaisa, ben Tomei L'Toher, ben Yom Lacharava, ben Ma'im Ayin Ma'im Tachteinim, and ben Kain Levim Yisraelim. I don't have time to elaborate on this, but this is a very, very interesting and involved idea that has to do with mechitzas. In Yiddishkeit, there are separations. We live in hippie world. And the fundamental definition of the hippie world is break down the mechitzas. There are no separations between men and women. There are no separations between Samtid and Goyim. Alts is the Zelbezach. It's all the same. It's not true. It's not true. There is a model in Yiddishkeit where mechitzas are broken. That's an extreme model. It's a Golos model. But in a normal model, everything has its place. And a Yid has to know his level. A Kohen is a Kohen, a Levi is a Levi, and Yisrael is Yisrael. And the same is true in every aspect of life. You have all of these divisions. For example, turn to page 3. This is a Rambam in Beis HaBchira Perek Zayin, where the Rambam lists Eser Kedushas. I numbered them 1 through 10. Okay? The thing that you have to understand about this Rambam is that Rambam is not simply telling you there's 10 levels of holiness. The Rambam is telling you there's 10 levels of holiness and you need all 10. Just like the Kodesh HaKadoshim is important, the Kedusha of all of Eretz Yisrael is important. Because there has to be different levels. In a human body, a head is the most important organ. You need legs. A person who is brilliant, felt a fuss, God forbid he's missing a foot. He could be Albert Einstein. He could be the most intelligent person in the world. He can compensate for his lack of a foot. But normal it isn't. Balanced it's not. And in the Beis HaMikdash, in Eretz Yisrael, in Zman HaBayis, the definition of the world is order, seder, al tzattanot. And the Esa Kedushas are, I don't want to spend, if anybody's interested, you can take these texts home and you can study them. I just want to go over the basics. Obviously, there is Kedushas Ha'aretz, the holiness of all of Eretz Yisrael. And if you've learned the Maimari Chasidus, based on the Gemaras and Masechta Ksubis, in Eretz Yisrael, there's a Ruach HaKodesh which does not exist in Chutz La'aretz, period. There's a holiness about Eretz Yisrael. Machta Eretz Yisrael is a Baal Tshuva exercise. It's a Golus exercise. It's not a Zman HaBayis exercise. In a Zman HaBayis exercise, there's no Machta Eretz Yisrael. It's you take the Beis HaKnesses and the Beis HaMikdash from here, bring it to Eretz Yisrael. Because Eretz Yisrael is holier than any other place on earth. Because in Seder, in order, everything has a place. Eretz Yisrael is holy. Chutz La'aretz is not the same Kedusha. There's a din of Moisef. You can stretch Eretz Yisrael. There's all kinds of halachas. You can make Eretz Yisrael bigger, and you can have Kedushas Ha'aretz with all the chiyuvim of Trumas and Maisris, and you can be bringing over there theoretically Karbonoimer and so forth and so on. It's considered Eretz Yisrael api halacha mideraisa mikir adin and so forth. But it's not. As they say in hippie culture, it's all good. It's nishtazoi. Eretz Yisrael has a kedusha of the rest of the world. Within Eretz Yisrael, you have the first step up is Ayaris HaMukafes Chema Mukudoshes Mishar Aretz. A walled city is holier than the rest of Eretz Yisrael. Which means this. Say it comes to, Mashiach comes, we all move to Eretz Yisrael, and they divide the real estate. Yeah, first of all, they have to identify who we are, from which Shevet we are. And then we have to be given a shtickle eretz, a shtickle karka. Every Jew is entitled to Dal Damas. If you are zoyche to get land in a walled city, you could look at it in two ways. I'm fortunate I was given land in a walled city, but do you understand that if you were given land in a walled city, there's a higher expectation of you. There's an assumption that if you are living in a walled city, there's different halachas like I'll be selling your land, about reclaiming your land, and so on and so forth. You're expected to be a better person because of where you live. Because that's the taich, seder, everything has a place. Number two, if you'll flip over your stack, is Yerushalayim, Mekudeshes Mishara Yarasam Okafes Chema. Yerushalayim, of course, is a walled city. Yerushalayim is the Kiryas Melech Rav, as the Rebbe always calls it. It's the Eibishter Shtat. At Yerushalayim, really nobody lived in. Yerushalayim was in his Chalkal Shvatim. Nobody had permanent habitation in Jerusalem. Nobody lived there. It was a city of hotels. That's what it was. Not because it was economically feasible, but because it's not the kind of place an ordinary person lives in Yerushalayim. The Melachim lived in Yerushalayim. Azariah Yid didn't live. God lived in Yerushalayim. You don't live in Yerushalayim. If you live in Yerushalayim, there's a higher expectation. The third Kedusha, if you'll turn the page, is Harabayis. If I'm not mistaken, Harabayis has a din of Machane Leviyah, but I'm not absolutely certain. And the Rambam enumerates, because it's a higher station, there's higher expectations. Then you have the fourth aliyah is Hachil. And I just want to mention that Chil is a completely rabbanic criteria. In Torah you have Machane Yisrael, Machane Leviyah, and Machane Kahuna, and that's it. The Chil is an in-between space. It's not Harabayis, it's not as a Yisrael. The distinctions between the Chil and the Harabayis, and the Nashim and the Chil, are only Midarabanan. Midaraisa, it's all considered Machane Leviyah. Then you have Ezras Noshim, and the Rambam in each case tells you higher level, greater expectation. Then the sixth is Ezras Yisrael, the seventh is Ezras Kayanim, that a Yid, we're not allowed to go into that Ezras Kayanim unless you have a reason to. The eighth is Bein Ha'ulam V'Lam Mizbeach, where even a Kayin who's a Balmum is not allowed to enter. The ninth is the Heichal, the tenth is the Kodesh HaKadosh. You cannot make the Kodesh HaKadoshim in your living room. Mitzad Golus, Mitzad Tshuva, you can make Mikdash any place you want. But the definition of the Beis HaMikdash is al tatased. Everything has an order. And there's another aspect to it. And the other aspect to it is preparation, preparedness. We know that there's a concept called Tameh and there's a concept called Tahir. Right? What makes a person Tameh? Whatever, they touch this or touch that, or this was on their body, it came out of their body, all kinds of halachas of Tumah. How do you become Tahir? You go to the mikveh, you become Tahir. If you encounter a dead body, okay, so you have to have the ashes of the paraduma, and you go to the mikveh and you're Tahir. So nicht das. The Mishnah at the beginning of Seder Taharis, Masechta Kelim, and I copied it on page 8 and 9, even though it's a bit hard to read, lists 10 madreges of Tumah. 10 madreges of Tumah. And here's how it works. Look on page 7. Halacha Chesed Rambam. Kol ha'tevel tzarech le'eskaven l'tfilo. When a person goes to the mikveh, he has to have a kavanah to go to the mikveh. Not stam, I'm going to the mikveh. I am going to the mikveh so I can eat ma'aser sheni, which is the halachas of those upper kursim will learn perek echad layom v'nei akotin b'seichem. If a person wants to eat kachim kalim, for example, he has to go to the mikveh, truma, for example, before that, taras. Truma, for example, he has to go to the mikveh with the kavanah to eat taras. If a kohen tables in the mikveh, and he's thinking that after he tables this mikveh, he's going to eat ma'aser sheni or chulul and taras hakodesh, he's tamei for truma. Get tabled in a mikveh. He's tamei for truma. He has to table again. If a kohen was table for truma, and now he wants to eat karbonis, kachim kalim, if the kavanah of his tefillah was to eat truma, he has to table again, and he has to wait for the sun to go down. If a kohen table to eat kachim kalim, and then he offer him kachim kadeshim, he got to nachamot to the mikveh. If a kohen was table to eat kachim kadeshim, and now they're giving him an opportunity to work on preparing the para aduma, that is a weiter table. It's exactly the same act. The only exception to the rule is a nida muteres labayla. A person falls into the mikveh. A mensch fällt da in the mikveh. You table to the mikveh. So the only time the tvila doesn't need a kavanah is for this. Every other mikveh, it's not enough that you're tabled, you have to know what you're tabling for and why you're tabling. Farvos al tzata. Technically, it doesn't make a difference. A person dunked in the water. Okay, there's certain instances where a regular mikveh of ashbayden is not enough. You have to have a mayan. A zov has to have a mayan. But b'derech klal, you can table in a mikveh at mem sav, big sham, you can table. The kavanah changes the tefillah, favos. Because just like in the land of Israel, everything has a place. In the person, everything has a place. And the place has to do with your kavanah. In other words, it's not just tamei or tahir. It's what's my mental station, what's my mental space. And if I purified myself on one level, I am not purified for a different level. Because it's not only the physical act of immersing myself in the water. It's the spiritual act of being there. There's a difference between chulul and taras hakodesh and ma'aser sheni and eter avoy. There's a difference between ma'aser sheni and eter avoy and truma and trumas ma'aser. The difference between trumas ma'aser and kachim kalim and kachim kadeshim and so on. And the act is the same. The mental space that you have to be in is different. No one is telling you, so a person will push the eitzah. I'll get up every morning, I'm going to table the mikveh, I'm a nas, that if I was a kohen, I'll work on the para aduma, I'll svashpart. You could do that. But that's not the idea. The idea is that we have to be spiritually conditioned for the divisions, for the various chalukes. In the times of the Beis HaMikdash, everything has a place. Every level is distinctive. There's different lands in Eretz Yisrael. There's different madreges of Tareh. You tabled in a mikveh and you touched truma. After you tabled the mikveh, it could be you made a tameh. Ich weiß nicht. Why? Because you had a wrong kavanah. Because the world of the Beis HaMikdash is defined by these divisions, and the divisions are in our heads. In other words, we have to be mentally in a space where we appreciate this is the level I'm on. I'm not on a higher level. I can eat ma'aser sheni. I'm on a higher level, I can eat truma, I can eat challah. I can eat a korban. I'm on a higher level, I can eat a korban. In other words, our spiritual, where we are beruchnius is a part of the tahara, and it's a part of the avodah, it's a part of life, which allows us to be either further or closer to the Beis HaMikdash, which is the spirit of this class. Before you come, know where you are and where you need to get to. As a practical matter, let's be practical for a moment. Mashiach is going to come, you're going to have a mikveh in your basement. And so will your neighbors. There are so many reasons people need to tovel in the mikveh. For example, Bechlal Erlich HaYidden were nizir to eat chul al taras HaKedesh. Chul al taras HaKedesh means their own bread and their own peiros. They wouldn't eat if they were tummy. There's a lot of tumas. There's severe tumas. There's tumas that come from a person's own body, like keri, like zov, like tzaras, like yildis, like nida, like zova. And in a different way, tamimes. Then there's other tumas, like tumas sheretz, tumas which are avatumas, tumas which are very serious tumas. And you have lesser tumas. You touch somebody who's tummy. Erlich HaYidden were constantly toveling in the mikveh. Their bread that they ate chul on taras HaKedesh, which means to say that if they had to take off a piece of that bread and give it to a kohen as truma, it would be tired for a kohen. So people were constantly toveling in the mikveh. Understand also there are many tumas that are bon, and one of them is tumas yadayim, which is a mind-blowing thing. If you washed your hands and you masiach das apidin, your hands are tummy. And if you touch truma, you made a tummy, it has to be burnt. Now, how could a tumah derabanan be yekir a taras deiraisa? Believe me, I'm not an expert on these subjects. I'm just giving you stuff to think about. So the reality was you have to have a mikveh in your own home. Nachanan gelaf from the mikveh. And in many cases, not only you went to the mikveh, you wait for the sun to go down. Because many tumas, the mikveh is not enough. You have to wait for Harav Shemesh, for the sun to go down, to be able to partake of whatever it was. That's the practical side of it. The spiritual side of it is we have to always be aware of ourselves. A Jew can never be off. You can't have you can't afford that. Your whole life is conditioned on maintaining your level, maintaining your space. If you're an ordinary Yisrael who lives someplace in the south of Eretz Yisrael, you live in the Holy Land. And in the Holy Land there are many halachas that govern your daily life, including an assumed status of tahara. Then, if you wanted to go to the Beis HaMikdash, you toveled already, you toveled again. Because that tefillah was not good enough for this new endeavor. And it goes higher, and it goes higher, and it goes higher. Now, in terms of actually visiting the Beis HaMikdash, of course, you want me to go over the 10 tumas with you, or you don't care? You want to do pages 8 and 9, or let's skip them? And all avatumas, all of them avatuma. I'm sorry. Wir reden jetzt Nigle. I numbered them 1 through 10. I don't want to, I don't know who's interested, who's not interested. You look through them 1 through 10. You look through them. In as much as visiting the Beis HaMikdash is concerned, of course, the first issue is on page 9b, and that is that there was a mitzvah of aliyah l'regel 3 times a year to come to the Beis HaMikdash. And Mistama, you know what the psukim say. V'haya midei chodesh b'chodshei u'midei Shabbos b'shabbatei. In the times of the Beis HaMikdash, aliyah l'regel is not going to be only on Yom Tif. It's going to be every Shabbos and every Rosh Chodesh. Now, I don't know if you have to bring 3 karbanos every time you come for Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh. And of course, the logic to it in Das Tachten, Balbatish Geret, in 15 minutes you can be in Yerushalayim. You have a super speed train. You can go from any place next to it's transportation. It's not going to take 15 days to go from the Har Pras to Yerushalayim. It takes 15 minutes. So there's going to be a much greater frequency. But to this also there's a seder. There's a time that you have to visit the Beis HaMikdash. Every year is Mechoyt Ve'el Regel 3 times a year. Aliyah Regel, incidentally, is considered a mitzvah seisha zman grama, which means that amongst other things, Noshim are potter. But my Schwer hat mir gesagt, das ist ein Maime von Mittleren Rebbe, where the Mittleren Rebbe says, Mashiach hat kommen, weil freuen sein Mechuyev, welche den mitzvah seisha zman grama. And zman grama, by the way, is another example of Yiddishkeit that's normal. In other words, doing things on time, being able to do the mitzvah when the mitzvah needs to be done, as opposed to doing the mitzvah when you're ready to do the mitzvah, it's a symptom of what Eretz Yisrael is going to be when Mashiach comes. So the first thing is a chiyuv to be Be'el Regel 3 times a year. And I'll read just a little bit inside. Shalosh mitzvahs and stav Yisrael b'chol regel. Mishayshel Agolim, we have 3 mitzvahs: Re'iyah, Chagiga, and Simcha. Re'iyah is a carbon you give to the Eibush, which is a carbon oila. Chagiga is a carbon to celebrate Yom Tov. And Simcha is a carbon that you should enjoy Yom Tov. That's what Simcha is. Okay? Of course, there's a lot of technical halachas that come along with this, but that's the basic idea. Another interesting detail that I want to mention, but apparently the Rambam doesn't mention it, on page 10. And that is that one of the halachas of Aliyah L'Regel was that you had to spend the night. There was no hit and run. The Rambam brings this nicht darab. Right? It says in the Pasuk, Ufanisa ba'beker v'alachta lo yalach. This is a sifri. It's also in Gemara, Masechet Pesachim. Melamed she'tu'unim lina. When you came to the Beis HaMikdash, you had to spend the night. Now, I don't know the mysticism behind this. Ich weiß nicht, the Pnimis, ich habe es keinmal nicht gesehen. But the mir legt sich bepashtes. If you don't spend the night, you haven't been there. You don't run into the Beis HaMikdash for 15 minutes like a chapa mincha. You come to Yerushalayim, you have 7 days to bring karbonos. The Sifri Paskins, that Pesach Sheni does not require Linas Laila because it's not a week. But you come to the Beis HaMikdash, be there. And the simon that you were there, that you spent a day and that you spent a night. In other words, you're a normal person, you have a regular life, you have raised up that entire regular life, brought it to Yerushalayim, brought it to the Beis HaMikdash. You're just running in and running out. And the symptom of it is that you have to spend the night. In addition, of course, any person can come to the Beis HaMikdash anytime he wants, as long as they're prepared, conditioned, rein, pure. One of the things which people are not aware of was that the Beis HaMikdash allowed goyim to bring karbonos and to a limited degree to enter into the Beis HaMikdash. The Rabbanan made gzeiris that a goy is not allowed to go into the chil, like you guys saw on page 5, but that's only with the Rabbanan. Okay, very good kasha. But a goy was allowed to come to the Beis HaMikdash, and a goy was allowed to bring karbonos. Now, what about goyim going to mikveh? Midaraisa goy is not tummy. The Chachamim were goys that every goy afilu ben yoyme is tummy like a zav, which is a very, very severe tumah. But a goy, I don't know bemis whether Mashiach is going to come. How are we going to figure out the tumah zav that abonon versus coming into the Beis HaMikdash? I don't think it helps a goy to table in the mikveh. Table in the mikveh helps because the Eibishter gave us a mitzvah. But goyim are allowed to bring karbonos, and the same is true of women, the same is true of men, the same is true of children. But there are rules. And they have to be properly prepared. You can come anytime you want. The tradition was, and I'm sure it will be, that families had personal holidays. You know, we're now in the 3 weeks. So this is the tekufa that people brought eitzim. Right, till Chamish Asa B'Yav, people were harvesting wood to bring to the Beis HaMikdash. It wasn't only a gift. It was a celebration. People had their days. And on their day, the whole extended family would come to the Beis HaMikdash. It was a Yom Tov, and they brought karbonos. You can come to the Beis HaMikdash anytime you want, assuming that you're properly prepared, that you're in the right frame of mind. And in the Beis HaMikdash, you don't behave like you behave in your own home. Or to say it in a little bit of a more refined way, in the Beis HaMikdash you don't behave like you behave in the local shtibel. And I don't only mean this cynically, I mean this in halacha. The din is, you're allowed to spit in the shul. You're allowed to sit in the shul for sure. There's a different, you come to the Beis HaMikdash, there's a different expectation. And I want to read with you some of the halachas from the beginning of Perek Zayin of Hilchos Beis HaBchira, beginning on page 12, which gives you an idea of how entering into the Beis HaMikdash was meant to feel like. Okay? Let me put it to you into these words. You know, alle wissen, the Taine was amol gewesen, weißt doch, the Germanic Jew comes to Eastern Europe, and instead of these gorgeous temples, these beautiful shuls, there's 21 shtiblach, each with a different name and a different chasidus, and I won't step into this one, I won't step into that one. You walk into the shtiblach, they're messy and they're dirty and they're fachazit, and the Germanic Jew says, you come into my shul, it's gorgeous. And everybody has a seat, and everyone behaves, and everyone comes on time, and everyone leaves on time, and everyone sings with the chazan. And da leifst man herum, und da esst man, und da schlaft man, und da redt man. And of course, we pride ourselves in the shtibel. We pride ourselves in the shtibel because, as the expression is, we live in shul. We live in shul. And the Daichish Yid Tainis, it has to be beautiful. And the Polish Yid Tainis, but it's dead, has no life. And therefore our shtibel with our mess is preferred to your beautiful shul. Rabbi say this is an expression of Zman HaGolus. In a balanced world, it's not that way. You don't eat in shul, you don't spit in shul, you don't sleep in shul, you behave. In other words, a shtibel is a wonderful place, it's very, very important, but it's a symptom of the need to compensate for chesreinis that we permit ourselves to eat in a shul and sleep in a shul and verbringen in a shul. And the shul is nicht as a punkt reden, and amol kann man reden, aber man darf nicht reden. All of these compromises are compensating for the alamas v'stadium of Golus. In times of the Beis HaMikdash, it's not that way, and the epitome of that is the Beis HaMikdash itself. Let's read. You're not allowed to walk in with your walking stick. You're not allowed to walk into the Beis HaMikdash and people see you coming from the road. Before you go into the Beis HaMikdash, you clean yourself up, you get ready. In other words, when you go into the Beis HaMikdash, it's the only thing on your mind. And there's no, I'm coming from so-and-so. I'm going into the Beis HaMikdash. You're not allowed to wear shoes. They walked around barefoot. You are not allowed to wear your, whatever it is, your wallet, your satchel. You're not allowed to have dust. In other words, you have to wash your feet. People used to tie money into a kerchief. You're not allowed to carry money. You're not allowed to spit in the Beis HaMikdash. Like I told you before, in a shul, they said even in the Ashkenazi version of Shulchan Aruch, you're allowed to spit in the shul. It's because it's not wrong, it's a different madrege. In the Beis HaMikdash is a higher expectation. Then he goes on to say, you're not allowed to use the Beis HaMikdash as a thoroughfare, as a shortcut. Coming into the Beis HaMikdash has one purpose, to come into the Beis HaMikdash. Turn to Halacha Dalet for a moment. Halacha Dalet. Kol shehishlim avodah. Any person who finished their work, and was now departing from the Beis HaMikdash, you're not allowed to turn your back to the Beis HaMikdash. You would walk backwards slowly, and you walk on an angle. You're not allowed to turn your back to the Kodesh. Page 13. When you're standing east of the Beis HaMikdash, behave. In other words, this halacha hey means not only when you're in the Beis HaMikdash. If you are facing the eastern side of the Beis HaMikdash, the Shechina is there, behave. Now, the Eibush is all over. Malach Alarz Kavede. But this is the place of Gili Ashchina. This is the Madrega. This is the Mechitza. This is the Havdalah of a higher Kedusha. You're expected to behave in a higher Madrega. The next underlined words, when you go into the Beis HaMikdash, yahalach benachas, you walk slowly, and you can only go where you're allowed. Again, the same idea. Why can't I go into the Kodesh HaKadosh? It's racism. And the answer is everything has a place. You know, Rashi says the Rebbe stark in the roof. Kairach says to Moshe Rabbeinu, I want to be a Kohen Gadol, and Moshe says to Kairach, Gamani reitze bekach, I want to be a Kohen Gadol also. And the Gemara says, a person learns Tadas hide in a Kohen Gadol, but he can't go into the Kodesh HaKadosh, because in the normal world there's Kohen Gadol Echad. And everything has to be in its appropriate place. Halacha Ches, Bizman Shahaya HaMikdash Boni, in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, Asur Leila Adam Lahakel Es Reishem Min HaTzevim. From any place where you could see the Beis HaMikdash, you're not allowed to be silly. That's what Lahakel Es Reishem means. You're not allowed to be silly. You're not allowed to be loose. You can't do what you want. It's a special place. You have to behave accordingly. Shu Chutz L'Yerushalayim B'Lifnim. And finally, halacha tes, which is something which we don't keep. Sfadim are more particular about this than we are, and that is also la'adam la'olam sheyifnai sheyoshan be'mizrach l'mayrev. Halachically, this is a Rambam. Yeah, this is not a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, something like that. It's a Rambam. It's a Gemara. You're not supposed to sleep with your bed east and west. Not supposed to set up a toilet where you're facing east or west, but tzafim darim for the cover of the Beis HaMikdash. Now, the honest truth of the matter is, when you got married, you get chassan classes. They talk to you about beds, mizrach ma'ariv, tzafim darim. Sfadim are very particular about these things. From what I understand, we're not so particular about these things, but in Eretz Yisrael, in times of the Beis HaMikdash, your whole life revolved around the fact that there's a kedusha of the Beis HaMikdash. And there's one last thing I want to share, and then I'll stop. Go back to page 12. There's a presumption. The presumption is if you're coming into the Beis HaMikdash, you're suited, you're qualified, you're on the level of going into the Beis HaMikdash. If you're not on the level of going to the Beis HaMikdash, you're not going to visit. There's no such thing as I'm going to do tshuva and fly from Asiyah to Ein Sof. It doesn't work that way. There's different madregas of Tumah, there's different madregas of Tahara. You raise yourself till you can go into the Beis HaMikdash. There were people who went into the Beis HaMikdash in spite of the fact that there was a certain chasaron in them. So the Rambam says in Halacha Gimel, any person who goes into the Beis HaMikdash turns to the right, and goes out to the left. Okay, this is, if you understand Boye B'Sholem and what's right and what's left, it's kind of confusing, but the Bepashtus, you came in from Tzad Mizrach and you turned to Tzad Tzafim. You're going counterclockwise, right? However, chutz mimi she'irei davar, there were people who were otherwise worthy of going into the Beis HaMikdash. In other words, they had the preparation needed, the mikveh and the tahara and the spiritual mindset to go into the Beis HaMikdash, but there was a chasaron. In one case, there's nothing they could do about it. In another case, it was their own fault. But they were still allowed to go into the Beis HaMikdash. So the Rambam, shehu makav al asmel. They went, as you put it, clockwise. They went the opposite direction. And people would see them walking up against the traffic. Everybody's going this way, and they're going the other way, and say, "What are you doing this?" Like that. I'm a mourner, and the people would tell him, the going to the left was a means of getting people to be menachem the oval, but it was a means of indicating my seder is nicht den ganzen beseder. There's something disorderly about me. I'm sufficiently beseder to come into the Beis HaMikdash. There's a small deficiency, and therefore I'm going to the left. The opinion at the Mofa Brachtentons, he told us that many years ago he was in camp, and he saw a bacher, a very chassidish bacher, playing with his campers and throwing the ball with his left hand. And it was very obvious that he wasn't a lefty, considering where the ball was landing. So he goes over to him, he says, "Was warfst du the ball mit der linken Hand?" He says, "Ich hab nicht gedavent." It's a Hasidic Maise. It's not a Beis HaMikdash Maise, but it's a Hasidic Maise. A person who has a deficiency expresses it by going to the left. And of course, the second one is Shani Menuda. God forbid a person is in a state of Nidui. So the halacha is that the people would tell him, the one who rests in this home, which is the Eibishter, should inspire you. You should accept the terms which will allow you to leave your nidui, and they're going to bring you close. So this is the end of this class. Before you come, what can I wear? I can't wear shoes. I can't come to the Beis HaMikdash b'diavad. You come to the Beis HaMikdash l'chatchila. Come to the Beis HaMikdash l'chatchila. You know, let me give you a Lubavitch example. Yeah, we call ourselves Hasidim or Hasidish, right? What's the right that you're a Hasidish guy? That you're a Slav. If you're a more Hasidish guy, you're a bigger Slav. How did a Slav prepare for Yechidus? He took a shower, he put on a suit, he made sure it was pressed. You're going into the Rebbe's room, you're going to the Rebbe and the home, it says the Rebbe's ruchnis nelakus. Was kleide, was a por heise, was a por shich. Somehow you understood that this is richtig. Yeah? How did you go to the Rebbe to Keshel Bracha? Or stand by Fabrengen? Somehow you didn't appreciate as the selbe Zach. Right or wrong is not the point. The point is, this is what going into the Beis HaMikdash means. The preparation is not only in Yonim Pnimiyim, it's in Yonim Chitzonium, because it's an orderly world. It's a Mesudadika world. It's not Chitzonius. Now it may be Chitzonius. But in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, Chitzonius is a part of the mitzvah. Chitzonius is a part of the Yiddishkeit. And so you have to dress accordingly. Do you have to go to the mikveh first? You may have to go to the mikveh 10 times. Because it's not enough to toivel. You have to toivel with a kavanah. You have to raise yourself. And there's different levels. And accordingly, the mikveh changes. A different kavanah of mikveh. Who may visit? Anybody. Afil agoy. He has to be prepared. And there's mechitzas. It doesn't matter who you are. You can't go where you want in the Beis HaMikdash. It's not a free-for-all. Everybody has a limit. Everybody has a space. That's not a containment. That's not a bias. It's seder. Just like a human being. A person's going to complain, how come I have to have feet? I want to have 3 heads. A head, and instead of my right foot and the ankle. The din is, a person with 2 heads is a treifa. Everything is necessary. The Evarim HaPnimi are necessary, the Evarim HaChetzenim are necessary, the Kohen Gadol is necessary, and the Ger Tzedek is necessary. Everybody has a place. Everybody has to know their place and live within that framework. That's the essence of the design of life in Eretz Yisrael. And when can I visit? So again, the answer is there are scheduled times. There is a seder for visiting the Beis HaMikdash, and in addition to that seder, you can visit the Beis HaMikdash when you wish, as long as you are qualified, as you put yourself in a space where you can enter into the Beis HaMikdash.